Hello, podcast listeners. This is Ed Franklin with the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. You guys probably thought I quit on you, but I didn't. I know I started a new job and I was to tell you about it, and I'll tell you more about that later. But this girl here, this is my oldest daughter, Samantha DeCastro. She has her daughter's name on her screen, but that's okay. If you guys have followed me, you would know that I did a podcast with my daughter Paige a while back, and two very different personalities. Love to death, love them both, to death, but very different personalities, which is interesting in a big family. How kids grow up different, how they come out differently. So remember, if you have a guest you'd like to have on my podcast, or you'd like to be a guest, it's edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com, and my website, which Paige helped me with, is almost done too. So hi, Samantha.
Hey.
Coming to us from Louisiana, New Orleans.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Outside of New Orleans, but yeah.
Yeah. Close enough.
You don't, I know. So I miss you. I wish I could see you on a regular basis, but of course it's a long drive. So
yeah, just a little bit.
A little bit. So Samantha has one daughter, Taylor, and she's married to Ziggy, the Rock. He's all rocked up all the time, embarrasses all of us with his shirt off, but that's what he does, and he's good at it. So Samantha, tell us what you do, first of all, so everybody knows what you do for a living.
So by day, I am the director of communications for St. Charles Parish. So here in Louisiana, we have parishes that are similar to a county in other states. And we have a parish president who acts as the CEO of that parish. And so I work closely with him, and I handle all of like communications internally, externally, social media, emergency, pandemics apparently now too. So
right.
I do that. And then I have a few years ago, I started a small jewelry business where myself and now Taylor helps me make jewelry from leather and polymer clay and just lightweight materials.
And they're really cool. And I'll have that in my link when I post this podcast, because Kit has some of that jewelry, and some of my friends too. It's very lightweight. I don't wear earrings, but they're very lightweight, made out of leather, all custom made, and they're really cool stuff. So we'll get you to that website. So while you brought it up, the pandemic. So the last 2 years has been an interesting for everybody. And you had to handle a hurricane through that, right? Is that what they call that, a hurricane?
Yep. Yes.
It's a tropical storm or whatever, hurricane.
Yeah.
And that was Hurricane Ida. So that was pretty interesting. I mean, obviously we weren't affected by it here, but you were definitely right in the middle of this thing. Tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll get into the kids stuff and all that later in a few minutes. But that was just interesting to me, because the way you had to handle it, you were in this level 5, right? Protected building and stuff. Now tell me about that experience.
Yeah. So the pandemic, obviously no one alive had been through a pandemic before. So there was no playbook, there's no planning that we could have done for it as far as a communication standpoint. And there was a plethora of information that I think people were really overwhelmed as far as what they should be doing, and what is right and what is wrong. And so as a local government, they leaned on us and looked to us for what was right. Now this probably happened in California as well, but I was living in my micro, world here.
Sure.
We were having neighboring parishes, which, are the county, like 20 minutes away. Different rules were happening in New Orleans than were happening in other places.
We're still doing that here, by the way.
Yeah. So that was probably one of the most challenging parts, because this was happening over here, only 20 minutes away, and you could drive there in different rules, but then over in our area was something different. So that took a lot of flexibility, which I think even some people on my team were not comfortable with. Right. We would say, okay, this is what we're doing. And then in 3 hours it would change because something that the governor said or some new development that happened. So that was really challenging. That'll be something that I'll never forget. And I think I learned a lot from. But then dealing with hurricanes in that space made it even more complicated. So even before Hurricane Ida last year, our EOC, which is our Emergency Operations Center, activated 7 times for 7 different storms. Wow. And while we were only impacted by one, we had to take all of this social distancing and masking and sanitization into account that we have never had to deal with before. So we had to separate people, had to do temperature checks on everyone. So it added an extra layer of stress stress and complexity to, figuring out how to operate in this emergency space. With Hurricane Ida, honestly, some of those restrictions were a little more lenient at that point,
Sure.
but we still had to figure out how to deal with it with the public. So Hurricane Ida was the area that I'm in, St. Charles Parish's version of Hurricane Katrina, if you will. We had significant damage. We had no power for most of the parish for like 21 days.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, at one point, so we get our water from the Mississippi River. We have an intake, the water comes in and then we purify it and then we, send it out to the public. A barge had hit the intake for one of our water intakes. And so part of the parish had no water for a few days. So, and then we were under boil water advisory for a long time. And then
Okay, you just froze up for a second, but we'll see. Let it get going here. Samantha, this is the second time we've tried to do this podcast, and her internet connection is she's not hardwired in like I am. So she'll come back in just a second, but yeah, she's really frozen up at this point, but hang in there. We're going to just continue to move on. She'll be back in a second. So I can't even imagine dealing with a tragedy like that, because here in San Diego, except for fires, we have not had to deal with anything like that since I've been in San Diego. And of course, I just lost her, but hang on, she'll come back. So I never had to deal with anything but the fires. And in the 2003 fires, we were right in the neighborhood where we lost 19 houses. A house as close as 5 houses away from us went up in smoke, and a lot of other houses. And of course, FEMA was, came in, and same thing with Samantha. FEMA had to get involved with their tragedy. So once we get her back here, we'll get going again. I might actually just edit this out, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I'm just going to pause this for a second. Okay, a little glitch in the technology there, but that's okay. We're back, and I'll edit some stuff out so you'll still get things. So you were saying that, what were you saying? That we were.
I was talking about some of the complexities about having power for 21 days and like the minutes. Yeah. So one of the other things too is the sewer system, and you don't think about that. But when we don't have power, we can't operate our sewer system properly. So because the sewer system, you flush the toilet, it goes down in the ground. We have to like lift it and move it to, stations where it can be sanitized and then put back, out into, the street water or whatever. So we had to have generators for all of those. So then fuel becomes difficult to get. So, we have hundreds of these lift stations around the parish. And so you don't have hundreds of generators on standby. So it was extremely challenging and very interesting to work through all of that. I said goodbye to Ziggy and Taylor a couple days before the storm was supposed to make landfall. I think that was Friday. And I didn't see either of them for like 12 days.
Wow.
Because I was at our emergency operations center, which, as you had kind of mentioned, is basically a big cinder block with some bulletproof glass on it. It's rated for a Category 5 hurricane, so it can withstand, like 160 mile per hour, 180 mile per hour winds. It has bulletproof glass. It's equipped with showers and a full kitchen and sleeping quarters and laundry area, so that the emergency personnel can stay there and just focus on getting the job done.
Well, not the Taj Mahal, but it was good enough for when you were guys.
Yeah.
And the only thing I could liken it to would be the fires we had here, right, in 2003 and 2007, I believe, where at our house, we were right in the middle of it on the 2003 one, not so much 2007, but we were not down that long. I mean, we were back in the house in 3 days and had just put new glass in the house. So we had no smell.
Yeah, I remember that.
Anything like that. Yeah, it was kind of weird timing, but. All right. So the meat of this thing, probably people want to know, is how was it growing up in this family, this huge family? Because you have siblings on your mom's side too, and then there were siblings on the other kids' moms. And So Samantha was our oldest, kind of the leader in the family. Well, maybe the test bunny too, or the test rabbit, test hamster. So all the mistakes that we made with her, we tried not to make those with the next kids. So Samantha came to live with me full time when she was 14, right in high school. Mm-hmm. And I had seen her obviously quite a bit. I had a lot of visitation and used it and saw you guys a lot. So we were close still, but when you moved in, we had 5 girls at home. So you were the 6th girl moving in. What was that? I mean,
wait, so first when I moved in, it was just 3 girls because Kit wasn't living there yet.
We weren't married yet. Yeah.
So it was interesting because you were going through some stuff. And so at least I hope I did. I felt like I maybe stepped up a little bit and helped take care of the girls a little bit because there's just a lot of stuff going on. But then sharing one bathroom with 5 girls or 6 of us once Lauren and Brenna came to live with us was quite challenging sometimes, but I was a morning person anyway. And it worked well because I started school first. So I got in there, got my stuff done and got out. And we fought like cats and dogs sometimes, but I think it all shaped us to be, who we are today.
So what's funny about that is I didn't really realize how much you guys fought. And as I talked to the kids,
you did it when you weren't there.
I know. So I'm thinking, oh man, these kids get along great, but it's just normal sibling fighting. But I was talking to Paige and we often have this conversation when the girls are over here about how much, fighting there was going on. And I was like oblivious to it. I should have known it was going on. I did it with my brothers and sisters. But you did step up and you did help me a lot. And a funny thing, Piper was at her aunt's house this week and Ross had to do her hair. And I said, oh my God, I used to butcher the kids' hair, when they were little, when I tried to, because I don't have any hair and it's just girls' hair is very hard to manage.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys had a lot of it. Well, obviously you were, doing your own, but I had to do those little girls for a while. It was pretty bad. The kid always kids me about the way I dressed them, but
yeah, like they're like little, like not little boys, but as if you would, they had.
I know I would buy them
clothes on and tennis shoes and stuff. Yeah.
I never put them in a dress or whatever, but she helped me with that.
I was saying, even when I would tell people all the time, like I used to go to high school in, rainbow flip flops, jeans that might have had some holes in them, might have not had holes in it, and like a surfer shirt. So I mean, that's kind of the style back then too, but at least in California. So
well, now that's the style. I see these. I'll tell you a funny thing. I go to these networking groups all the time over the last 5 or 6 years, and a gal showed up, young gal, like probably younger than you, and she had those torn jeans, and I thought, wow, those really aren't business, attire or whatever.
No.
Now, that after I saw those, everywhere I went, I saw those ripped jeans, and I see the kids wearing them sometimes, and it's so funny because. But business has changed. I mean, I don't wear a tie anymore. I have 35 ties in there's probably 135 ties in my closet. I haven't put a tie on in years. So, so growing up with all these kids, people will ask me how was doing that. I said, I didn't really think about it. We had to make dinner for all these kids, and half the time your friends were over and other people's friends. So did you find that, would you have rather, and this is not a cut to anybody, had less kids in the family? I mean, did you ever think about that?
There might have been a time here or there where I maybe wanted more attention for like a sports thing or something, which is impossible because it was like right after school and other kids had to be picked up and other things had to happen. But it wasn't that I didn't want the siblings there. Look, we could have a party whenever we wanted. We never had to invite anyone over. I think that was amazing. I miss not having access to all the family. I don't miss all the drama all the time, but I don't think I would have had it any other way at all. Cause I don't know. It was fine. We made it work. And Well,
it's funny. When I look back at my life, I don't really, I was kind of the same way looking back at my childhood about money and things like that and having opportunities. I mean, the opportunities were there. I had a great time growing up. I guess on paper it wasn't a great youth, but we did what we had to do. And I was talking to Paige, and she felt like sometimes she didn't get the attention she needed. And I said, I had to spread my time over a lot of kids, right? And a wife, and
Yep.
work, and I traveled, and there was a lot going on. But I thought, I think for the most part, we had, we didn't have tons of stuff, but we weren't poor by any means. We did well. And you played a lot of sports, and you were involved in academic stuff like the yearbook and things like that. So academic.
Yeah. And I think we always want, I was gonna say, I think we always want more. I think you could ask Taylor, who is a single, or is an only child here at my house, and has 2 siblings at her dad's house, who still would want more of my attention, even though she's deciding to play her piano for 3 hours after school in her room. So we always want more, whether it's time or.
So you said you kind of missed the family piece of it.
Mm-hmm. No. Now I miss having
Do you miss having all those people around all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do too, because obviously I have Tanner, geez, I do this all the time. I have Carson and Piper here, not Piper all the time, but it is weird having one child here most of the time. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because he'll want our attention, and I mean, we give it to him most of it. It's daunting. It's more daunting than when I had more kids, because you guys would communicate together and you'd get stuff done together. I didn't have to necessarily stop doing what I was doing.
Right.
So that was interesting. And then the last 2 years has obviously been another, because he's been here a lot. So it's really interesting. And we take him to the gym now and things like that. So you went to college, junior college to start with, right out of Poway High.
Yep.
And then you went to New Orleans.
Yes.
And met a guy, went to New Orleans, had a child, all that, and then had a breakup. I don't hope you mind if I brought that up. And then you wanted to stay there. So this podcast is about getting over limitations, and you have done an amazing job getting over limitations, right? You are a driver. I guess if you have to look at the kids and go, you have to kind of split them up and go, okay, you're like her and you're like him, and you're like me, right? We're the driver. We don't give up. We push through. I've had people ask me, someone at church had gone through a divorce, and he was very sad a lot, upset. And he goes, why weren't you sad about that? I said, I get angry about those things. I pout for about 2 minutes, and then someone's going to get hurt, right?
Oh, and well, I'm not going to hurt anybody, but
no, not physically, but then I drive forward.
Yeah.
It's like, get out of my way. This is what I'm focused on. And I think you're a lot like that. So when you did make this move and things didn't work out perfectly, what was kind of going through your mind? You had to make some changes, right?
Yeah. Well, part of me was, I had to prove some people wrong.
Sure.
Do it. There's a little bit of spite probably in it. And then honestly, a couple of things went through my mind. I was like, Taylor had to have a relationship with her dad, even though I did not like him at the time. Right. And so I knew that moving away and moving back home would have inhibited that. It would have been a knockout, drag out fight. And that just was not what was best for her. I also had a really good support system here. I was working for a small investment firm at the time. And my now best friend worked with me there, and she was a manager, and she and a lot of other people there really helped see me through it. They kind of knew what was going on behind the scenes before I knew, really. Sure. And they even went as far as like ensuring that every item on my baby registry for my baby shower was bought. So that was important. And then I was also, you talk about going to junior college. I remember very vividly, and I joke with some people about this sometimes. I remember coming to you in high school and saying, Dad, I know where I want to go to college. It's not too far away. It'll have all 4 seasons. It's got this really cool photography program. And you're like, okay, like where do you want to go? And I said, Northern Arizona University. And you're like, how are you going to pay for that? And I said, you don't have a college fund for me?
Well, I talked about that on my podcast before, but go ahead.
Yeah. And you're like, nope. And I said, okay, so I guess I'm going to junior college. So I had applied to go to LSU and they have a good communication school there, and I got accepted. But when I got here, I didn't realize how far away New Orleans was from LSU, and that commute was going to be impossible.
Oh, I don't.
And so, it's almost, with traffic, it's probably almost 2 hours. So doing that on a daily basis was not going to work. And I moved here in 2008. So it was still during the Katrina recovery. And the community college here was not reopened yet. And then their state university was not didn't have a ton of classes. And then their two private colleges, Loyola and Tulane, were coming back. And Tulane was trying to build their student base back up. So they started doing these adjunct classes, and they called it continuing studies. Some of them were after school, like a night school. Some of them were with classes with other students. And so my neighbor at the time had told me about it because he was going to do the law program that way. And so they had public relations and marketing as an option. So I was working full time for the investment firm, and I was going to school either in the morning or at night while pregnant. And I had already made so much progress with that. I'm like, I can't give up. And having a degree from Tulane, while the name doesn't mean that much to me, it was important that I finished that. Sure. And I will say, I really fell in love with the culture and the people of New Orleans.
Well, I was thinking about this today because you're perfect for New Orleans. As much as I want you back here in San Diego, that's your thing, right? That's you like that dressing up and all the hoopla and all that stuff.
The traditions and all that, yeah.
And I'm glad that you're there for that. I want to back up a little bit to the college thing, because when you tell people you have 8 kids, the first couple of questions are you Mormon or Catholic? You have a television. I mean, it's bullshit, right? That you get.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it's a blended family and this and that. And they said, wow, man, college is going to be expensive. I said, no, because I'm not paying for my kids to go to college. For 2, and here's my ignorant thought on that is we didn't have college educated people in our family, right? And when I came out of high school, there was not even a thought, I'm not going to college.
Right.
There's a funny story about college and that I won't tell now, but so I just went to work. And then I started seeing these people sending their kids to college for exorbitant, right? I had 8 kids. I could never afford that.
Yeah.
And they just drank, right? They just drank. So I used to say, look, I'm not paying for my kids to go to school to drink. Now, this thing means a lot more to you. There's a lot more satisfaction, I would assume, because you did it on your own. Right? If someone would have paid for this, obviously you would have loved to have someone pay for it. But
yeah,
the reality is you overcame a lot of stuff going on. You're pregnant, you're moving to a new place, you don't know anybody when you get there, you finally get a job. So, and the other thing is, you're going to have to pay for a lot of weddings. I said, no, I'm not paying for those either. So, because most of my kids did not traditionally the ones that are married did not do it traditionally. And they'd have these appetites that I'm like, I don't have the money for that. And I have all these kids I'm paying for. So,
yeah.
But you should be super proud. I know you, and I hope you're proud of yourself. We're proud of you too, for getting you've done this all on your own, Samantha. And here you have, now you have a business, you got a child, and let me tell you, having 1 child or 6, 1 child's harder than 6 kids.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Having when Piper and Carson are here, it's way easier for me to have these 2 here than it is when he's by himself or Piper's by herself.
Yeah.
Because you just don't have to, I don't have and it's like 2 dogs. I have 2 dogs because I couldn't stand a 1 dog.
Yeah.
And I can't even stand a 2 dogs sometimes, but whatever.
Yeah.
But so I kind of wanted to bring that up for my audience, that you kind of did this on your own, right? Was it a perfect exchange? No. And I'll tell you something about keeping the dad involved. Your mom and I had a horrible breakup, right? It wasn't,
I remember.
It was just, it wasn't that one of us did something wrong, is that we just hated each other, right?
Yeah.
A judge told me one time, he says, the problem is that you guys are so emotionally attached. And I'm like, no, I'm not emotionally attached to her. He says, you are. It's just, you just hate her. That's the emotion you're using. And the hate, that animosity just eats you from inside out, right? And all she wanted to do, all we both wanted to do is just see our children more than the other one, right? And it was kind of became a competition.
Yeah.
And once I was able to release that and get that off my shoulders, it made the whole relationship different. We get along fine now. Now, I don't hang out with her every 5 minutes, but if we have to communicate, it's not a problem. We wasted so much time arguing, and I've told you this before, and you're learning it. It's just all that energy spent on that hate and that animosity is just wasted energy, right?
Yeah. I will say this.
Go ahead.
For a very, very long time, I had a lot of hate as well.
Sure.
And I made a very conscious decision about 2 years ago to let go of that hate and forgive. I didn't have to tell anyone about it, you know, but it feels so much better. And in the beginning, thank goodness Taylor was so little, she didn't hear or see any of that. And we, you know, if we ever did, you know, fight or send mean text messages back and forth, we never let Taylor see that that was happening. So I think, you know, if we did anything right, we did that. But I agree 1,000%. We went to, we had to go to do some co-parent counseling, and maybe on like the third or the fourth session or something, the counselor held it back. And she told me the exact same thing the judge told you, that I hate him so much. I need to like learn how to let that go. And granted, it took me like 5 years to figure out how to do that. But it is a big deal to let that go. And you know, it's crazy. You talked about earlier how you get upset about something and then you let it go and you move on. I do that too. Like I even tell my team normally at work, like if I do something or you upset me or you do something wrong, we're going to hash it out. And then in 5 seconds, I'm going to be fine because we got other stuff to do. Life's too short. But for some reason, I could not let this go. It took me a really long time for some reason to let that go. But I feel 1,000 times better.
Yeah. And, you know, I feel like now at my age, I just kind of, and Kit and I are both like this. We're like, you know, it'll pass, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's no big deal. Don't stress it. Here's a funny thing. So I have my taxes coming up, right? I haven't done my taxes yet. This weekend, I'm getting everything together. And I'm kind of worried about them, but there's nothing I can do right now.
Yeah, it's already done. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, there's no sense in worrying about it right now. There's no sense in losing sleep or getting angry. And that's a hard thing to teach people. And, but it took me a long time, but I'm hoping I'm going to get this over to you kids, is that things will pass. They're just, you never think when your kids are little, they're going to grow up. And how old are you going to be this year?
36.
And I look back, to me, you guys are all 5 still, right?
Yeah.
When I look back, so we just got news this weekend that we're having our 15th grandchild. I mean,
15, I can't believe
15 grandchildren, my God. And when I just brought up your mom and I go back to when you guys were little, when you 3 were the only ones around and we're arguing about stuff. And now I'm having my 15th grandchild this year.
Yeah.
It looks silly now, but when you're in that moment, you know, you don't know. And when I'm talking to people and trying to give younger people advice, I'm like, just don't get so wound up on this in the moment. It's going to pass, you know?
Right.
And so you've done enough, and I'm glad. And I talk about this too, lifting that weight of what people think off your shoulders. When you're
still working on that one.
and it's hard. I mean, it's hard. Dude, it took me to in my 50s to finally go, you know, I don't fucking care what people think. I'm going to wear whatever I want. I'm going to say whatever I want. My God, I have tattoos all over the place. And it's like, it's just what it is. You know, you just kind of let it go. I don't judge people based on what they look like. That's a lie. Of course I do that. Everybody does that. Yeah. But I try to say, forget that. Let's see what kind of substance this person has. We need to give up that and let just people see our substance too.
Yeah.
And listen, Taylor's dad loves her, right?
Yes, of course.
And he would not hurt her in any way.
Right.
But listen, I get it. I feel the same way about him. You do. So I get it. But, you know, when we were out there, I don't have time to argue. I'd rather spend good time with you guys than bad time with him, right?
Yeah.
So good for you. And Taylor's doing fantastic. I know she's doing great.
Yes.
And she's going to keep getting better.
Yeah. So it was funny. She told me yesterday that she wanted to be a doctor. A month ago, she wanted to be an engineer. Before that, she wanted to be a paleontologist. So we're headed in the right direction.
So here's the funny thing. Last year in Piper's class, I went there and talked about my business, right? It was about brilliant marketing ideas. And I went around the room and asked these kids what they wanted to be. And this is what we lose when we get older. And there's kids that say, I want to play in the NBA and I want to play in the NFL and I want to be a fireman and a cop, right? So I'm going around, and this is the brilliance of being young, right? And there was one kid that was funnier than hell. There's one kid sitting in the back with these little nerdy glasses on, and I think his shirt was buttoned all the way to the top. And I said, well, what do you want to be? And he was very shy. He says, I want to work on computers. And I wanted to say to the class, you'll all be working for him eventually, but
right,
it was the funniest thing. But
yeah.
then as we get older and we start asking kids what they want, like in high school, I asked Carson, he's getting, his confidence is now starting to get affected, right? He's starting to worry about what people think. He's starting to worry about, so it's, don't you wish we could just go back to that, you know? And here's the thing, Taylor could be all of those things over the years, right? Right. She could be a doctor that's also a paleontologist. It's also this and also that. And we as parents want to go, well, you should get into something that's really steady, right? That's what we're going to say to her. That's what you're going to say to her. I'm not, I'm going to tell her to follow. I'm going to tell her to have one. So I was listening to Arnold Schwarzenegger yesterday about not having a plan B. If she asks me, I'm going to say, what do you want to do? Plan A is the only thing. That's the only option. You're going to say as a parent, well, you need to have some things, you know, in case that doesn't work out. It's the worst thing
so it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because when she was talking about all the engineering stuff. So here we have public schools, but most kids go to private school. We're not going to say most. A large percentage of kids go to private school. And so with that, we get to kind of pick where she goes since we're paying the tuition. So the school that she picked is one of the only schools in the state that's like this STEM accredited and has all this like cool technology stuff. And they even have like engineering things like built in. So when she wanted to be an engineer, I was like, okay, cool. Like, let's look at all these different kinds of engineer things that you can do. And then she threw the doctor thing at me. And I was like, Taylor, when I was 12 years old, I wanted to be a doctor and I wanted to go. I'm not a doctor. I did not go to Stanford. And so she made me record it and bet that she wasn't going to change her mind, but I guarantee she's going to change her mind again, which is fine. She's exploring all the things and learning so much stuff. So, yeah.
But, you know, we have to, I'm constantly, so when I watch, I have a whole different view of the school district now versus when you guys were in school. I'm watching Carson get told college, it's the only way to go. It's the only way to go. And I'm thinking, listen, Carson, you're very creative. You're very artistic. You have the ability to do things other people wish they could do. And we need to keep you on that path. I swear I'm almost ready to try to get him into like a high-tech high or something because he doesn't think like those, like I did. He doesn't think like you did. He has this whole different artistic level, which his mother has too, but didn't use it. And which a couple other kids I have too didn't use it. And I hope they don't regret that later, that they can't do, they didn't let their artistic like personality blossom. And I'm really encouraging him. I'm not so concerned about math and English and all those things. I'm really pushing him towards, I'm not really pushing him, but I'm really encouraging that art piece, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. She likes doing all the artsy stuff too. I mean, she's playing her piano now, but I think she loves like the math and science stuff.
When you get a chance, listen to my podcast about with Damani. He's 15 years old. He just released his first album. He's 15 years old, and he learned his parents have really been a good, encouraging thing. So, all right, so let's go back to all these kids. It's amazing to me how different all of you are, and the choices you've made, and everything. Growing up in the same house, even politically, your attitudes towards politics. Right now, you're in politics. I mean, you're the only one in politics and probably the only one that will ever be in politics of my children, right? I think. So you have kind of a little bit different perspective on how things work as communities and parishes or counties or whatever you want to call them now. How interesting or frustrating is that, or both?
The last election, I think, was stressful. I let myself get a little too sucked in. And you know, it's interesting because, you know, people are like, oh, everyone, it's a swamp and everyone's politicizing it. And they're just all politicians are bad. And working for a couple of them, they're not all bad. They're, you know, I do see why they get, you know, that impression and why that comes across, but they really aren't all bad. And they really can make good things happen. The problem is that everyone has a different need or a different want and ask. And so it's trying to find that happy medium, which you're never ever going to find.
Right.
But sometimes we just have to stop and listen to each other a little bit more. And I think we can get a lot more accomplished that way. And I've had the, privilege of working with people, especially now, someone who does do that. And I really do believe has the best interest of the people that he is elected by in mind. So, a lot of people don't like it because they think it's dirty and grimy and yucky, but I really do enjoy it. I want to leave the world a better place than when I got here. And so I'm hoping I can do that, at least in this role that I'm in now.
Well, good. I think that two things that frustrate me the most about politics is when California has made some decisions on things that were based on what voters voted for, and then they have judges come in and change the law, right? Change what was voted on. That's frustrating.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think it would be hard for me when I've been asked to be on boards of the Chamber of Commerce and other places, and I'm not necessarily a big fan of collective agreements, right? So I have things the way I do them, and if they don't agree with me, I don't want to do it their way. That is the most selfish thing anybody could ever say, but it's just the fact. It's like with the Knights of Columbus too, is the same way. I don't necessarily want to do what they've collectively decided to do, because I still think it's the wrong thing to do. Is it hard? Have you had a situation where the politicians you're working for have a very clear vision of what they want, but the voters choose something else? How do you handle that? You know what I mean?
So,
let's say, I almost said that word. Let's say here it was immigration. Okay. So we had a law about immigration that was passed, and they just went to a judge, and the judge says, no, you can't do that. But the people voted for it, and they changed the law. I don't know if you've had any instances like that.
No, unfortunately, we have not had something like that here. I think, I'm trying to think of a good example.
And I don't want to get you in a situation where you're making a political statement, because I don't really want to do politics. But yeah,
at local government level, just because I think some people don't understand how it works, really, to be honest. So local government, your mayor, your council people, they affect your day-to-day life. They're the ones that are making sure you're getting water and sewer, and that the street sign is where it's supposed to be, and that there's a stop sign there, and that the taxes that you're paying, they call millages for like mosquito control or things like that. Those are the kinds of things that they are affecting, or or what you pay for your water rates. Those bigger things, that's when and why it gets so complicated, because there is just so many other people involved and so many other opinions about it. So at local government, you don't normally have those, because those votes directly do affect you at the end of the day, and your job is really to listen to the people. And so we did a moratorium on building homes in St. Charles Parish for a little while, because we were having so much flooding from this torrential downpours that we were getting that were not forecasted. And it was not popular by the people that build houses, the people that sell houses,
of course, right.
and things like that. But there was a resounding there was a resounding message from residents that they wanted to see something happen. And so like I said, while it wasn't popular, I even think some of the council people that weren't necessarily for it, maybe begrudgingly is the wrong word, but they listened to what their voter base was saying. And that's really how it's supposed to be. It doesn't always work out like that, but that's how it should be.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say on that is, because I really hate politics. I mean, I don't necessarily, you and I are probably about exactly the same on politics. So for you and I to talk
pretty close,
about
probably.
Pretty close. Poway, you wouldn't even recognize Poway right now. So they have apartments they're building apartments down the road, and multi-purpose buildings and things like that. And it all happened kind of at the same time. The thing about Poway, and probably any community around there, is I would say 60% of the people have no clue what's even going on because they're not interested. So they just kind of let everything else, so you might have, 40% of the people voting on things, and those people are probably uninformed at the same time. So when stuff happens and all of a sudden they see it physically, they're like, oh shit, what are you guys doing? What's wrong with you? And you're like, hey, we put it to vote. You guys didn't vote. That's kind of what happened.
I think that's the thing that gets me the most frustrated is that people will complain, yet they're not involved in the process. Mm-hmm. And exactly. I think no matter whether you think the last election was good or wrong, or right or wrong, if you look at it, the election was determined by like less than 50,000 votes out of how many million? So if 50,000 people would have voted a different way, it would be a different country today. Right. So when people say, oh, my vote or my voice doesn't matter, it actually does. And so because I control the communications for our parish, it sometimes is challenging to respond to residents when they're angry about certain things, knowing that they don't come to council meetings, they don't engage in the process. Right. When we go above and beyond to make sure that there's an opportunity for them to do that. So, I would say if anyone who doesn't like politics or, doesn't understand it, get involved, because that's the only way that you really can make change happen. And don't just go on social media and complain about it.
I know. And with that being said, though, I think that if you sit there, any just Joe America, right, sits there and waits for the government to make decisions in their best interest, I think that's foolish. I think, listen, we've had a lot of people that have been successful during COVID, a lot of people that weren't so successful, a lot of people, you just, I just wrote another speech that I'm going to try to get out there. It's really about personal responsibility, right? Mm-hmm. We all have things holding us back from getting to that next level, whatever that limitation is, or we're not telling our story, or we're making excuses. Doesn't matter what the government does. It could be the worst government in the world, but we can still make progress in areas of our own life, right? Either religiously or physically or whatever, toot your horn. And I think we find ourselves blaming, it's like these gas prices. Let me tell you, gas was $1 a gallon when I started driving, like 89 cents, $1.21, something like that. It's only gone up 5 times. The house that my parents bought that I sold went up 30 times.
Right.
So the gas situation will get straight. This will get straight. That will get straight. This will get, or whatever, or you make more money. I mean, if you want a new car, you work harder, and we can't keep blaming other people for our situation.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to how you were talking earlier, how, people ask like, how did you do it with 8 kids? You figure out a way to do it. And I think for some reason we've lost that over, the last couple decades or so, because life hasn't been hard for us. Life has actually been really a piece of cake for a lot of people. And I say that not that there's struggles, but good point. We have central air conditioning. We have ice whenever we want it. We have access to anything in the world via the internet. We have instant gratification of having food delivered to us at whatever time of day that you want, because you're hungry and you're too lazy to get in your car and go get it. So,
I talk about my next podcast is going to be about business coaches and sales trainers and all this thing. And here's the thing: if you're not right with yourself, if you're out of shape, or you're whatever is bothering you, if you're in a bad relationship, whatever, and you go and you hire a sales trainer or a personal coach or a life coach or whatever, if you're not right, you can't assimilate that information and make the best out of it anyway. So the first thing you need to do is get yourself right? And that's exactly what you just said. When we look back, when people do say that to us, and Kit and I will kind of talk about this sometimes, it's like, I don't know, what was my option? Oh, you guys can't eat tonight? I mean, that was just our life. Yeah. And you know what? I miss that life, to be honest with you. We're not empty nesters, but I miss the busyness, and I really missed it the last 2 years, just the busyness of our life, right? Just the constant. And when I got this new job, people said, oh, you're going to not do the podcast or the speaking. And I said, oh, no, I'm doing it all, because I perform at a lot higher level when I've got 100 things to do and I'm behind all the time. That's where, and you have to identify that.
We are the same person.
I know.
We're the same person.
When I have a
and it's funny because
go ahead.
I was just going to say, because, you know, I constantly, at least in previous jobs, I've always found it challenging to find someone that I have to keep up with. Mm-hmm. I feel like I outgrow the position too quickly. And I know people say that's a generational thing because people of my generation like to hop jobs every 2 years because bigger and better thing. Mine was more like, I want more work. And so with my boss now, he is 32 and he has as much energy as I do and is just as much of a busybody as I am. And so it's crazy because I call it fun because I really do like it, but it is challenging because there's always something, you know, before we started, you asked me how work was and I said, it's crazy and I'm waiting for that break, but deep down, I don't want that break because I like the pace.
And that's where COVID really affected me is that I went from 100 miles an hour to 0 and I'm like, oh shit, what do I do now? Now, Kit has been working through COVID and, you know, she works out of the house and everything. And she likes that robotic repetitiveness, right? Mm-hmm. Gets up at the same time, starts at the same time. Fuck, it drives me crazy. I want to be, you know, just like this all the time. And I know, and I'm laying in bed trying to figure out how many, if I have time to do 20 things tomorrow, I'm trying to figure out 40 things to do, right?
Yeah.
So I can stay busy. So, no, I'm glad. And I'll tell you more about the job later, but, no, it's good. The podcast is going to get bigger and better. The speaking thing's going to come because I'm getting involved in organizations. I'm going to have opportunities to do that. So, and we'll get out there and see you hopefully this year. And when Paige did her podcast, Paige just kind of has a I almost said weird agenda. That's not fair to her. It's her agenda, right? Paige has just very different personality than you. Talking to you is like just looking in a mirror. I mean, you know, you're prettier. It's like I could say things and you'll probably know what I'm going to say before I say it. Right?
Yep, basically.
So, and not all the kids are like that. You're probably the most like me out of any of the kids. Mm-hmm. Tanner is doing great, by the way. He's one of those guys too. He's got to have 100 things to do. He cannot sit still.
He does. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he won't even take a drink to calm down. He doesn't even do that. So so he's got his mind is going over.
We got to bring him to the dark side on the whole drinking thing.
let's do it. No, I was thinking of we were thinking about going out and seeing him and then driving over to Louisiana because he's in Texas.
Yeah, so. I think it's only like 6 hours away.
So we'll figure out how to do that. I'm not opposed to coming out there again for Thanksgiving. So keep that in the back of your mind.
Wait, so Ziggy just said the other day, he's like, man, we had such a good time when your dad was out here for Thanksgiving. It was perfect. Like, was it the perfect amount of time? We did, the perfect amount of things. And even then it was during COVID. So if you guys came out again, we'd have some more stuff to do. Yeah. And
here's the thing, as a father-in-law, as a dad, right? I don't want to bother you guys. It's like, I'll back up a little bit. So Carson goes to the gym with us, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Carson, you sure you want to go with, I'm your grandfather, He's like, no, it's cool. He's like, I said, because I just don't want to be that grandfather that takes him to the gym, but I don't look like, I'm not 75 years old.
Yeah.
And he's like, Papa, he says, you look so mean at the gym. Like no one's saying anything. So, because I have my hat backwards and I don't smile or anything with tattoos. But I don't want to come out there and like burden you guys like, oh shit, they're going to be here.
No, it was great.
Yeah. And this way, if we come out this year, we can go do more stuff, right? So we were kind of limited to what we could do. We sat around.
Yeah, look, Kit got to see what it's like when it flash floods here. Remember I took her to the grocery store and the car gonna flood? Like, no, we're okay.
I just don't want to ever be intruding, right? That parent that comes and intrudes. I don't want to do that. So
look, no one else has ever stayed in our guest bedroom except you and Kit. So it's officially y'all's room.
Okay, cool. So no, and Ziggy has his routine and I don't want to upset that. And but no, I think this year would even be better because I think we're going to have opportunities to do more stuff, right?
Yeah.
You guys took us around. It was fun. So anyway, I mean, we can continue this podcast or we can I mean, I don't know. The worst thing about you and I is, like I said, we're like two peas in a pod, so it's kind of hard to keep it going. But no, I think everybody kind of got the gist of who you are, and I'm so proud of you, Samantha, what you're doing out there. You're this superstar mom and wife, and business person, and I just want you to keep that up and know that we're supporting you 100%. And I always knew you could do whatever you want to do. I'm thinking Samantha DeCastro for president. Let's see, what year?
Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna do all that, but we'll see what happens.
By then, but how about a senator or something, a congressman?
Yeah,
I've told people before, I think that my daughter will end up. You might want to do that, and I know you'll stay honest and do all those things, but just not to get off on another tangent. But can you imagine these congressmen or senators that get into office with this really good heart, right? And some lobbyist comes along and says, "Look, we can give you $30 or $40 million if you just sign this bill, and you don't have to do anything, and it'll be under the covers and all that stuff." That's tough, right? That's got to be tough for a politician to go. I mean, they could retire on that. I don't know. That stuff's going on.
Yeah. So that is really, really unethical. I think what really happens is, I think this contractor takes you to lunch, or this person, goes and does this for you and make sure you get invited to this thing, and I think that's kind of, that's how it starts, at least. And so
being in the sales world, I know of a friend. I have to be careful how I say this because I don't want anybody to know who this friend is. Who, to get government contracts, they were giving some pretty cool gift cards, we'll say.
Swag. Oh, okay.
This is better than swag. Yeah. And they got caught and went to prison for 18 months. And the guy's a good guy. He's a good person, and probably didn't mean anything by it. So when I was selling to Pepsi, they came to us and said, they sent out a letter to all the vendors and said, if you go to lunch with one of our people, you have to go Dutch. They really jumped on this thing and said, you can't do this anymore, right?
Yep.
And when I was in the HVAC business, I'd take people to lunch, but not, we didn't do trips and like fishing trips and stuff, but our competitors did. So they've a lot of that stopped in your normal everyday business. I'll get people that say, look, I'll just pay for my own coffee. It's just, that's not why I'm taking them. I'm taking them to get some captive time, right? Yeah. I have an expense account. The companies usually don't care about that, but it's, but yeah, that's on obviously a huge scale that we've had to, as salespeople, kind of back off on. And I wouldn't do a lot of the things. Somebody at work at this new job just said about drinking. I said, what? I've never taken a customer to lunch in 30 years of being a salesman and had an alcoholic beverage. And they're like, really? Yeah. I said, I usually, because I was out of town and I didn't want to get disoriented out of town. Yeah. And they said, oh, you don't drink? I said, oh, no, I drink. I just don't drink with customers.
It's funny you say that because a female in a pretty male dominated world, especially in Southeast Louisiana, I'm always very cautious about that. And to any female or young female listening, going into business, if it's a night something, I have a 1 drink minimum for myself. And after that, it's soda water with a lime. So it looks like I'm drinking. But, there might be a situation where if I'm at a conference and my hotel room is there, but even then I never lose my bearings because you just never want to be put in that position. Well, and that's even for guys. I mean, you're there to do business. And I know that sounds maybe prudish or whatever, but I don't know. I just would never, I'm with you. I would never put myself in that position. I'm twice
the age of some of these sales guys that work with us now. I'm like, dude, I've been there and done that. I already know. But there's pitfalls, and we would go on these national sales meetings where there'd be salespeople from all over the U.S. at this one location, and there was always that asshole that got drunk and like crashed a golf cart or did something stupid. And I was very good about watching myself, when that stuff would start to go down. And I was always conscious of representing the company too. I didn't want to embarrass the company. And or lose my job. I mean, that's kind of a thing you want to think about.
Yeah, kind of need that.
But women, as having 7 daughters and a wife and a mom and sisters, I could see, yeah, that's trouble. I mean, when these lawsuits come out and these news stories come out about that, I'm like, yeah, these guys do that shit. I've seen it happen. And I would stop if I saw it, I'd stop it, say, no, get away from her. I was at a mixer on Tuesday night, and I ended up talking to a gal about your age for 20 minutes or so, just about, she's in the lab business, and you could see guys like gravitating towards her, and I hope I wasn't that weirdo I was just talking to her about life. So anyway,
you probably weren't that weirdo.
Yeah, I never want to be that weirdo. That's why I don't want to be that in-law either that comes and goes, hey, we're here. Shitter's full, out in front of you.
I was going to say, we didn't pour the slab, so you can't come and stay in a camper, but you can come stay in the house for a little bit.
We need to get that slab poured so I can come in. Is your dad leaving anytime soon? He's been here for 6 months now. I'm not doing that. I wish I had the money just to travel around in a motorhome, but I don't know if I could do that for about 3 months and I'd be going nuts.
Yeah, me too. I don't know how long I would last doing that.
All right, beautiful. I wish I'm so happy you're on my podcast. This will be a good podcast. When I share it, please share it with all your friends. They want to kind of see your life and see what's happened. I really appreciate you doing this. I know your time's limited, and we'll probably do it again at some level. But man, I wish I could just be next door to you and run over and hug you. But listen, now that Paige is in Oregon, Tanner's in Texas, you're in Louisiana. I want the best for you guys. I want you to be in your best situation. And I wish everybody lived here, but that's not the case, and that's okay. There's airplanes and trains and cars and all those things.
Yeah.
So hopefully at some point we get to the chance where we can just bounce around and see all you guys. But listen, I'm so happy for your success. You got plenty more to come. You're still young, and younger than I just can't believe I have a 36-year-old daughter at one level. Because that makes me older, right?
Yeah.
You're doing fantastic. So let me do an outro here, and I'll put your information in for Satazi and all that. So this is the Ed Franklin No Limits podcast. This is my oldest daughter, Samantha DeCastro, and she lives in Louisiana, and she's the bomb, and I'm so proud of her and what she's done. So if you want to contact me, edfranklin.nolimits@gmail.com. If you want to be a guest or know somebody that be a guest. And what's your email address for your earrings?
It's satazijewelry@gmail.com, or you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Satazi Jewelry, SATAZI Jewelry.
That's right. And you can tell it's Samantha,
Taylor, and Ziggy.
And Taylor, yeah. Samantha, Taylor, and Ziggy. So ordered. Okay. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you. We'll see you all soon. And wait till the next podcast. It's going to be a good one.